So how's your SuperCoach year started? Looking okay? Team value and team health looking all right? Or is it a little bit shaky? The good news is that we are still in a place where you can make some pretty big moves and get your team either back on track or with some smart training, get yourself ahead of the curve. So who are the trades and the players we should be considering this week in SuperCoach? For the first time ever, I've done two things for you on this series. Number one, I'm going deep. I'm giving you 10 trade options this week in my ranked top 10 trade targets. And then alongside it, I'm giving you a player that doesn't sit in the category of a moneymaker. Yeah, I'm giving you a primary premium target. Now that we're diverging away from only correctional trades, and some teams may still need to make a few, but now that we're not only focusing on correcting mistakes that we've made, we can start to consider other options. And for me, I'm going big with my call, but straight out of the gate, I think the number one trade target this week is Ryan Maric, sitting in at 265k, a break even that's certainly not the largest of anyone in the community, but there's a couple of things I like about this. An average of 76 is not indicative of what he's done over the last 2 weeks in terms of the volume of ball, the effectiveness of how he's being used in this distribution role off halfback, and how frequently the ball is funneling through him. I think when we talk about players that have SuperCoach scoring and why for me I'm so strong on Maric as an option is he has a couple of things going for us that are really important for us. One, he's got dual position status, which is really critical for, it's not just a limited, okay, if you've only got a Sanders issue, for example, yeah, easy outlet. But if you don't have a forward line issue and you don't have options there, he can become an outlet for you through the midfield. Again, if you're not happy with an O'Sullivan, what he's delivered for you, you've got a Mitch Nevitt type who feels like he's unfortunately hit his ceiling of earning unless he can re-kickstart that with some big scores over the next couple of weeks, or a Camporelli who seems to be a bit dead in the water. Yes, you got to put money on top of those guys to get into Ryan, but he's at least going to keep cash generation going. I think the second thing that he's got is a favorable scoring role. There are really kind of three key areas. There's always more, but three key roles that do seem to be quite favorable to SuperCoach scoring. One is rucks, with those hitouts to advantage, the flow-on effect of score involvements that can happen through that. It's a favorable SuperCoach scoring role. The other is players that winning contested possession and ultimately transitioning that with good skills into goal scoring moments. And then the other is halfbacks and kind of playmakers that are sweeping and creating off the back. Maric sits in that spot, and he's got a much more favorable role than others that sit with some of the same positional elements and a comparable price point. So to me, while we've got a really nice mid-rook that sits there, I think the fact that what Moraes, who we'll talk about in a second, offers is strong and great, but Maric offers ceiling. Maric offers positional flexibility, and he offers you a role that, as long as he stays there, is amazing. And if McGovern's out for a couple of weeks, or even a question mark for this week, we could and should see him really mop up massively, because this is an awesome SuperCoach scoring option. The ball, I project, will still stay in that Eagles back line for a decent chunk of time. So to me, this is the number one trade priority for me that I would be encouraging you to look at in 2025 as we head into round 4. Next player up, and maybe for some people the number one option, I don't think they're too far away, is a Christian Moraes. The Port Adelaide running machine has absolutely found his home in this Port Adelaide side. Probably the reason he's trumped by Maric, that I probably didn't cover off so much around that, was Moraes does always have this aura of a potential vest. And it's more the type of nature of player that he is, as well as the fact of the team that he sits in. Now, thankfully for him, they haven't really started great, but a couple more wins and that could change pretty quickly. But look, one of the best break-evens in the game, -79, almost at that basement price point, and put a decent score on top last week. While we don't bank that score, we will have in that price cycle movement for the next couple of weeks that score. So to me, I think he's going to make at least 150k should he maintain this role and avoid the vest, which is obviously the thing Nevitt owners are hating, and we are hoping Moraes can avoid as well. So, but to me, I think he's a really nice option. If you're just looking for a pure mid and need something at the basement or near basement level, Moraes is the one. But I think Maric, and the reason I've got him at number one isn't just the sub concern, but the fact that I think Maric could carry you through to the buys and be fieldable. And given we're out of best 18 after this coming week, I think it's critical we don't just stock up our sides with money makers, but people that alongside the cash generation, we think have got the capacity to score pretty well for us. In at number 3 for me is Riley Bice, the defender, who from a points per minutes, from a Supercoach perspective, is electric. Already 22% of the competition have their hands on Riley, and it's understandable why they've done that. An average in the mid to high 70s is again not reflective of what he truly is, due to that game where he came on with the sub, but a great break even at -81, an awesome price point, much like Christian Moraes. And though it sounds like a Callum Mills will be ready for probably gather round at this stage, I just don't think the way Bice plays or what they're needing in this defensive line, he's any concern of falling out of the side. It seems with the game time he's been given, he's done everything possible. I fully expect him to play again this week, and rather it seems like Patton, who had that role at the start of the year, has fallen out with Bice overtaking him. So I think this is a great pick, whether it be you're jumping out of a Sam de Koning, who's really topped out in cash, whether that's, I don't know, maybe you're jumping out of Fraser early. We just need another rook, defender, whatever it is, that's fine. The only caveat I'd flag with you, and again, I skimmed over it quickly, is remember after this week, your bottom scores aren't just dropping off in multiples, it's just the one in Supercoach after this week. So you'll have 23 on field in round 5 and beyond, but only one of them's dropping off, whereas right now, up to 5 scores fall away with best 18. So you just don't want to get too deep with too many rookies on field in your back line. I think they're a little volatile, some of their scoring. Just ask anyone that fielded Reed a couple of weeks ago or that fielded Trainer a couple of weeks ago. Yes, they popped okay scores, but that's always the concern. That said, he's probably my third trade target option. In at number 4, and for some, it's a little closer, but a Bailey Humphrey I've got as the number 4 trade target. 270k, an awesome average to run out of the gate, a good break even in that negative space. He is going to turn some absolute wheels and some cash for us, coming in against a little bit more of a difficult matchup against the Crows this week, but the run for the Suns is still very, very favourable, and it's why I could understand some favouring Maric over Humphrey. For me, the trump here is role trumps potential opportunity. And by that I mean is, where does our Supercoach scoring come from right now? It's players that play in that ruck position, the inside mids that can finish with class and skill, and our playmakers off halfback. These are the players that we desperately want our hands on. Whereas for Humphrey, he's a hybrid half forward midfielder. Now, in teams that they're beating up on, like they have for the first couple of weeks, that's all been fine. But if this matchup against the Crows is as tight as forecast, I think he'll still be good for us, but I just think Maric has that edge. So can you get both? Absolutely you can. I wouldn't get both at the cost of fading a Christian Moraes, for example. But if you want that extra forward, either you're sick of a Sanders, whether you're trying to create other forward cash generation options, whatever it actually be. I know some are even considering a Horn Francis all the way down to one of those two boys. And I've seen some of that threaded through the conversation in the community, whether that's not a good idea. Probably wouldn't go there myself, as much as I understand the ideology. Horn Francis is the kind of guy that can just pump a 150 on you and really leave it feeling quite embarrassing when it goes a little bit pear-shaped. But so far, that hasn't happened. To me, though, Bailey Humphrey is the number 4 trade-in target. A guy that's snuck up on us, I think, if we're honest, is the guy I've got at number 5, and that's Murphy Reed. I thought he was destined to be a good player, but given the position that he has, which is inside forward and pushing up from forward 50 for the Dockers, he will pick up forward status in Supercoach in a couple of weeks' time. Make no mistake about it. But my concern was it seemed to be goals with the pathway to his scoring. But over the last 2 weeks, and most specifically last week against the Eagles, where he gave us that ton, it was really evident that that was not the case. Now, the cavalry should be coming for the Dockers this week, and that includes the likes of Young and Fife. All seem to be fit and ready to come in, so that might just clip some of his opportunity. But the good news is that under 200,000, with such a good negative break even and with forward status coming in the next couple of weeks, and importantly, on top of that, that 100 sitting in that price cycle movement for the next couple of weeks, even with some underwhelming scores or even a vest, dare I say it, he should still make us plenty of cash. He snuck under the radar for me. I thought he would be fine as a pick, but he's turned out to be more than fine as a selection. And well done to you if you've already got him. And if you're looking to trade into another mid, you've already got a Moraes or traded into Moraes. Maybe you're already like, I don't need a defender, don't need a forward, but I'm getting Maric, I'm getting Moraes. Need another mid. Maybe you're trying to clean up some dead options that sit through there, whether it be Kako that you've had to open up the DPP link, Camporelli, not happy with O'Sullivan or any of the other names. Maybe you're still rolling through the Hollands type in there. I think Murphy's a nice pick that sits in there because both he and a Levi Ashcroft, I've got them picking up forward status in just a couple of weeks' time. So it's my top 5 picks. Do you agree with my list so far? Comment below and let me know if it's the order you would have for the top 5 trade targets in Supercoach. Who's my 5 following? My 6 to 10? Noddy makes the list. Yes, promise Vinny Monkey's not here pulling all the strings. It is not a contractual obligation that I highlight Nathan O'Driscoll in every trade target. It's just the fact that coming in with an average of 96, I know he's owned by 50% of the community, but if you're in the other half, you're missing a trick here. This has been and will continue to be one of the best money-making players for us this year. You might say, well, hang on, MJ, you just mentioned Young. You just mentioned Fife coming back in. Doesn't some of that same concern land for you? Well, to a small extent it does, but the reality is he's done this outside of this midfield role. He's done it as a centre bounce mid in round 1 against the Cats, and then he's done it through the wing and a little bit off half forward the last fortnight. So to me, he's the best kick alongside Hayden Young in this team. They will and do want to get the ball in his hands. And if you don't own him, this is one that's going to burn in Supercoach for you. It will be the one that you look back along with a few others that you look at and go, that was a miss. I should have corrected that when I had the chance. This is an absolute star knockout pick. It's not too late, but after this week, it absolutely is. So it's now or never for Nathan O'Driscoll. He's my number 6 trade priority because I think a lot of the Coaches Panel followers have him. But if there's a skerrick of you that don't, make this one a pretty high priority. Number 6 is a Dan Curtin. Speaking of sneaky surprises, even more so than a Murphy Reed is Dan Curtin. Forward eligible, just a clip over that 200,000, has seen some price movement already, but the real pain of missing him is about to come. Now, I don't think he's critical to have. It's why I've got him at 6 and not in the top 5, let alone I've got him at 7, let's be honest. He's not even in my top 5. So I'd pick a Maric ahead of him. I'd pick a Humphrey ahead of him. He's my 3rd forward option. So it's not like you have to own. But his last fortnight has been exceptional. The quality of opposition is not going to be what we expect Gold Coast will be, but they've still got some pretty favourable matchups to come over the next couple of weeks. So to me, Dan really looks at home and has found a way to sneak under the radar with so many other Crows emerging and stepping up. I think this is going to be one that maybe in hindsight, players like a Kako, players like a Stone, as fine as they've been for us, I think Curtin, I think Hall, and I think Reed, these are some of the guys that have just snuck under the radar for us a little bit more than we would have liked, but it's not a disaster if you don't have him. But if you're like, MJ, I'm just going all out forwards, all out attack, get my Maric, get my Humphrey, and I need one more. If it's you, Dan Curtin, I'd put in that mix. 3 last guys. I'll give you a mid. I'll give you a mid cow. and I'll give you a defender. Let's stick at the defender. The perfect time was last week, but Connor O'Sullivan still is presenting for you as an option. He has moved up a decent chunk of change already, but a negative break even of 44 in 32% of sides, an average in the low 70s and just a clip over 200k. He's still presenting value for you, not as much as a Riley Bice, but what he brings is more job security and an unlikelihood of any kind of coloured vest, whereas with Bice, the fact that he's already had that happen to him once is enough to concern some coaches. Still, to me, if I was going any territory in the defensive line, it was going to be Bice. O'Sullivan was probably the play last week, but this one sits in there too if you're really desperate. I wouldn't say it's high priority because potentially the week after you'll have a Toby Travalia. The week after that, you could potentially have Asad El Hawley, should they continue to get named, let alone a Callum Mills as that cheaper rook, mid-price option in your defensive line, and you might not need that extra rook. But look, he's there because someone might want that, and it's still a pretty strong and a high priority. I just have Bice a little bit higher, but for those that need a double defensive downgrade for whatever reason, you got a couple options there. Hey, last two options for you. I'm going to give you Harvey Langford as a name through here, but I think you can wait. A break even of just 2, so not exactly knocking the door down when you contrast it to a Moraes, a Maric, an O'Driscoll, a Reed. Again, when you contrast Reed to him, like it's about 15, 16, 17,000 different. Reed's got a break even of of 63. Langford's is of 2. So we've got, 65-point differential that Langford's got to have to just match the scoring movement and the price movement of Reed. It's not really a decision, if I'm being polite. But again, if you've got Moraes, you're not really, maybe you've got Maric and you've already got a Reed and you still need another mid, Harvey's in there. Now, the average of 52.5 is clearly not favoured, but it's not the truer reality of what he did last week. He was excellent, and I can't see him getting vested, barring just management. That's not going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So to me, I think he's in the team for a decent clip of time. I think he's got some good scoring about him. Maybe in a week if you're desperate, but you just can't pick him over a Moraes or a Reed if you're talking about pure mids, let alone what others that have midfield eligibility, like a Maric are when you consider his price point, his break even. Yes, he's going to get opportunities through there, but these guys are going to accelerate cash for you much faster. And at this time of year, while job security is critical, I do think these players have that for what it's worth. They're just going to make you money faster. I don't think you need the long burn. If you have him already, it's fine. Don't trade out of it because I think he's going to be a good pick, but I think there's some other mid priorities ahead of it. And then for the first time on my SuperCoach trade targets, I want to start introducing to you players that aren't just money makers. Now, I could have done this last week with a Jack Sinclair. We talked about him a lot on our strategy session that comes out late on a Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. I held off the temptation of adding Jack Sinclair simply because I still felt like a lot of coaches were making correctional trades and trying to get their ducks in order. Whereas from this week, it's probably on the earlier side for some. But for some teams, they do have themselves a position of some excess cash sitting in the bank that they can activate and turn it into a premium. So to me, if I was trading into any premium mid right now in SuperCoach, I'd take the 30,000 that Nick Daicos has lost and I'd jump on him at 602,000. Look, a break even of 134 tells you there might be a slither of fat left on the bone. But to me, I just want to get my hands on Nick Daicos sooner than later in the season. He is the type of premium mid that can take seasons away from you. There do appear to be a couple of tag games that are coming soon, but the arrival of a Dan Houston makes it at least a discussion for opposition coaches and their strategy sides to make decisions of, well, is it the ball movement of Houston we want to stop a half back, or is it the playmaking and the transition scoring of a Nick Daicos? I think that's a conversation, whereas historically it's been all on Nick. Regardless, to me, I think we all admit we want Nick in our sides at some point, and sometimes when you've got that opportunity to jump, you just need to take it. So 29% of teams already have him. He's just a touch over 600k. You might see him drop 10 to 15 more if you're lucky. But sometimes you just need to jump that little bit early. I think for me, he's going to be a star. An average of 96 is the lowest I forecast him going this year. I still think he's going to knock the door of 120 seasonal average, which means from here on in, for him to do that, he has to rip it. I'm pretty keen to get my hands on Nick Daicos. I can't afford it this week, but if you're in that lucky position to be able to want to upgrade to a top line premium mid, to me, there's some good options this week, but Nick takes the cake. But what are your SuperCoach trades this week? I would love to know. Comment below and let me know the moves you plan on making. If you're enjoying this video as well as the others that we do right throughout the season, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Get notifications on so that as soon as an episode drops, well, you know about it on your device straight away. Hey, we can't wait to be back chatting with you about more fantasy footy stuff real soon, whether it be SuperCoach or whether it be AFL Fantasy. The keeper positions, they have dropped. They're on the channel. So if you play draft on the keeper platform, go and check that out. There's a ton of new positions that have landed in the game. And of course, the strategy session, which is there for you. Again, it's already on this channel. It came out a bit over 24 hours ago now, and it's there unpacking the big strategy points that you need to consider for your SuperCoach side heading into round 4. Look, good luck this week. Don't forget, final week of best 18 before we get to round 12. So get that team in order. Make sure you're on track with those trades. And I do hope they land nicely for you this week. And we will chat to you again very, very soon, helping you with your SuperCoach side for this fantasy football season.